So we're here with Scott Evans of Kowloon Walled City. Hi there.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good. How was your day so far?
It's only 10:30 in the morning here, so it's still getting going, but just the usual day. A
Mm,
lot of parenting and a lot of looking at calendars. Those are the two things that I do the most, I think.
yeah, it's good to keep track of the time now.
I do a lot of recording and I have a family and there's just an incredible amount of scheduling. Like every time I look at a calendar, I get like
Where did
heart
that time go?
palpitations. Yeah, it's just a lot of juggling of like, can someone get 3 days here, and can these mixes be done by this day, and is our band doing something this day, and like, oh, my kid has something for this whole week, and like, just a lot of logistics all the time,
Yeah,
all
I
the
can expect I can
time.
expect that to happen,
Yeah,
especially now that each member of the band has had his own family life and his own other ventures.
yeah, definitely. Every time we're trying to book shows or even just have practice or whatever, there's a lot of negotiating. It's different than when we were younger.
A lot of things are different than when you were younger, I assume.
Yeah, they have cars now. It's crazy. Like, all kinds of new inventions.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we broached this topic of when you were younger, how are your listening habits now compared to back then?
I think they're in a lot of ways similar. I know, for instance, a lot of people who are, 25 or 20 right now or 15, uh, they may be more singles oriented, more like, here's my favorite songs, these are the playlists that I like, that kind of thing. And being older, I've always been an album person, and I still am. So, for instance, like, I do listen a lot on Spotify, but it's always saved albums. I don't have playlists. I don't keep songs. That's just not the way I function. I'm still like sort of virtually flipping through CDs or records to say, what album do I want to listen to?
Mm.
And the only other thing I think that's different maybe than it was, well, there's two things that I'd say are different than they were many years ago. One is that I just have less time to listen to music because I do so much recording. I spend a lot of my listening time listening to my own mixes to see what needs to be fixed. So if I'm up in my car, I've got to go, whatever it is, go drive to the post office or something like that. I'm more likely to put on mixes that I'm working on or a master that I need to approve or something like that, because that's a great way to hear something fresh. And then, like when you sit in a studio and you listen to something over and over again, your brain does a lot of subtle things that you don't realize.
Yeah, some
To
filling in the blanks.
Very much, and you just start to think, this sounds great. You start to hear it the way that you want to hear it, and so it's great to go somewhere else and sort of surprise your ears and say, this is what it actually sounds like. And those first few minutes of listens are very, very important if you can remember what you heard right then and go fix it. So
Mhm.
I do a lot of that in my listening time. And the other thing I think that's maybe different than when I was a kid is, I think I listen to a lot broader spectrum of music than I used to. When I was a kid, I listened to thrash metal, basically, and like progressive death metal and stuff like that. And that was it, really. And these days, I'm much more likely to be listening to like weird electronic music or very sparse country or just all kinds of stuff. Instead of just listening to heavy music. In fact, the only heavy music that I listen to these days is sort of like, I don't know, I'm just not a genre person with that anymore. Like it's got to really grab me and be like, these are great songs, or this band is really special. Instead of like, I just love all funeral doom and I'll just listen to all of it. That's not me anymore.
Hmm. So you have become a sellout.
Um, Does that word still mean anything? I'm not sure.
I don't think it does. It just means that you are no longer doing the type of music that I like. So that's
Oh,
all that
that
it
is what
means.
it means. You're right. Yeah. In that case, yes. I don't know. I mean, I guess I've always liked, for a long time anyway, I've been more drawn to like great bands and great songs than I
Rather than
have been
just
to like,
something that sounds in a particular style.
that's right. So like, maybe like the first couple of Dillinger Escape Plan records, I was like, whoa, this is fucking amazing. But 10 other bands that kind of sounded like Dillinger or would be touring with them, maybe not special to me. And I think, that has continued. And it's similar for, again, country music or like electronica or whatever. Like, there's no genre where I'm like, man, I just want to listen to some, noisy rap. Like it's got to be good. And then the genre doesn't matter. And I think maybe I said that that's a change, but I think I've probably been that way for a pretty long time. I've just gotten better at finding more of it.
And a lot of it is because now there's a lot of availability in music that you didn't really have
Infinite availability. That's right. Yeah, for sure.
So it's great to have like most of the world's music at your fingertips compared to having a really tight budget, going to the CD store and hoping that what you're buying based on the cover art doesn't suck.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to do that, I didn't know any different, and it was great. So I don't know if it's better or not. I mean, I still get a lot of my recommendations either way. They come from friends. I have, a dozen or 20 friends or whatever who are total music freaks, and we're always texting or emailing or whatever each other about, did you hear this record? Have you heard this? Oh my God, listen to this. Like, and that's not that different than it was 20 years ago. It was when I was still.
Yeah, it's just
like,
faster.
Yeah. Now it's not like, oh, I'll go try and find that at the record store. It's like, if you told me something to listen to, I would listen to it 5 minutes from now.
Yeah. But yeah, something that I noticed is a lot of the albums that either my father showed me or that I bought with my own money back when I was younger, they still stick with me compared to a lot of the music that I listen to now, even though I have everything at my fingertips. I listen to a lot of music, obviously, because I do music journalism. But it's harder to find music that really sticks in a way.
I think
So
part of that is probably
I'm
because you're
going
older.
very, very broadly in my listening habits now.
I think it's hard to replace the sensation that any music has when you're young, because you've never heard any of it before and it all changes your life. The first Yes album I heard like changed my life, and the 10th Yes album I heard, it might have been fantastic, but my life was already kind of changed in that way. And the same is probably true for you. I mean, there's other differences too. Like if you only had 10 CDs, you're going to listen to them a lot.
Yeah, obviously.
But I do think there's also that aspect of like, your brain is just different. When you're a young mind is just experiencing all this stuff for the first time, and it's hard to replace that.
Yeah, I think all of us can remember hearing Black Sabbath for the first time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like, what is this?
So it is weird for me seeing people on our forums who are now hearing Black Sabbath after having gotten into other types of metal first, and then they come in, they don't really share that experience. They say, it's all right. Dude, it's not just all right. It started here.
Yeah, but it's also literally 50 years old. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
obviously, yeah.
If you go a little further back than that, you're listening to like Buddy Holly or something. I mean, I remember I was recording this band Mercy Ties. They're a great like gnarly sort of technical hardcore bands, or like a Botch or something like that. And we were talking about AC/DC, and Trevor, their guitar player, is like, that shit just seems dumb to me. Like, who would like this? And I'm like, Trevor, I don't know how to, like, this is crazy to me, it's so raw and so like just rock and roll and so great. And and so fundamental to everything else that happened afterwards. Like, it's funny to me that you can't see that. He's like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I listen to hardcore. Like, I'm here to mosh, the end. Like, it's like, well,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
at the same time, I can understand not liking AC/DC if you're someone who has went to a lot of parties where the only rock music that they played was AC/DC and Bon Jovi, and you're really sick of it.
no, for sure. But that's not the experience I'm describing. This was just
Mhm.
it was more like what you're saying, where if you start off like, listening to like, I don't know,
The
like
classic.
Napalm Death, or you start off listening to Full of Hell, or you start off, like you bought 10 modern grind records this year. Like, that was when you started really getting into heavy music, and someone's like, hey, listen to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. You're going to be like, dude, this sounds like weak,
Mhm.
and I think that's kind of the thing he was experiencing with AC/DC, is it's just like,
Yeah,
this doesn't
not
sound,
seeing it in the context.
yeah, this doesn't sound all puffed up and hardcore, it
Mhm.
sounds, but yeah, it was recorded in 1976, like,
Yeah,
whatever.
I think a broader point that you can get on this is obviously the part of the personal experience, but since I have to be a music critic, how much do I have to put in the context of the album? So if a band makes the same record, like you would say for Motorhead, or a band that really sounds like Entombed, like a lot of death metal bands do nowadays, so even if it's really good, how much of it do you have? I'm not seeing you anymore for some reason.
I don't know, my phone just rang. I'm getting rid of it. I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. So I was recording an interview a while ago, and I got a phone call, and I didn't know that that phone call would stop the recording. So I went on with the interview, and only then did I realize that I was not recording anything anymore.
Oh, wow. But we are still recording, right? It
Yeah,
says
we're
we
still
are. Yeah.
recording. That's okay.
Okay.
But what I meant is, you sometimes you can't just take the music for itself, right?
Yeah, I don't really like, music criticism seems very hard to me.
It is hard. You
The thing that you're describing, like, where you like, well, how important is it to put this in the context of itself, or the moment, or and I hear a lot of people talking about music standing the test of time.
Mhm.
um but in the back of my head, always, 20 years is not the test of time, right? 20 years is at like a tiny little blip.
Mhm.
It means nothing. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's better if your record sounds dated. If your record doesn't sound dated after 20 years instead of sounding dated after 3 years, okay. But in the big arc of history, or musical history, or whatever, just none of it means shit. So I I don't know. I'm glad I'm not a music critic. It seems,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
well, I'm not glad that I'm not a musician. Okay, so what would you say is your favorite decade of music?
Ooh, wow. I think I actually have two answers, and I don't know that I could defend either of them really well. They're like half decades.
Mhm.
I would say early 70s. There's a lot of like significant change in rock music, and a lot of, and I feel like that was also like a peak of recording technique and technology. So
Mhm.
really beautiful sounding records, and really cool music. So again, you can pick like Yes, or maybe a little later than that, some Pink Floyd records, and Sabbath records, which are not great recordings really, but they're great recordings in their own way, and amazing records. Uh, and the other one I would probably pick is like, I don't know, 1997 to 2002 or something like that. If you run down, like, as far as hardcore goes, like, and some metal-y stuff too, I guess. Uh, from like Botch to Meshuggah to I don't know, Frodis, or Shallow, North Dakota. Like you can just there's so many, like that to me seems like it was the pinnacle of kind of that flavor of music. Refused, like the list in any one of those years is incredible. I feel like that was a really good high point for weird heavy music.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now imagine how much music from the 17th century do you know? Or let's not go that far, from the 18th century.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with the point that you're making. Like I've had a handful of friends, for instance, who are classical music nerds, and that some of that I have absorbed. But there's lots of other music from that period that wasn't orchestral music, like the equivalent of pop music, and I don't know any of it. And yeah, I'm extremely aware of this as far as all of our places in history.
The more current we go, or rather the more close to our adolescent years when we're really into music. So the further in time you go, the more stuff gets lost to time, doesn't really pass. So the classical composers that everyone know, Mozart, Beethoven, stuff like that. It's really very few of the amount of music that there was back then. So in 400 years, I'm not sure any of the music that we think about from the 70s and the 90s will really be thought of that much.
No, I don't think
Maybe
so at
Pink
all.
Floyd,
I mean,
but
maybe, yeah. There's I would never be able to find it now, but there was a good article about this a while ago that talked about which music seems to survive and like represent a decade. And they used a lot of, since there's so much metric driven, you can look at Spotify play numbers and some other stuff like that. You can draw a lot of conclusions. And I wish I could remember the details of it, but it was one of these things where it's like some song that was kind of like a B-level hit in 1983 is the most played song from the 80s now. Like that's, it's like some REO Speedwagon song or, some shit like that. Like it wasn't that. It might have been a Journey song. I can't remember, but it was, if you were alive in 1983, like that would have been one of the songs you heard. But if you said like, pick the song that everyone 30, 40 years from now will remember, you never, ever would have picked that one. And somehow because of, the weird movement through time, and they did it for a bunch of decades, and it was surprising every time. And that's just decades, right? Like a century. I mean, your question about like the 1800s, like how much music do you know from like 1920?
1920. I know maybe some jazz.
Yeah. Even, and I talk to my kids now, like the amount of culture that there is to absorb now, like, they're avid music listeners. Both of them had 50,000 minutes of Spotify listening each last year, right? It's like 40 days each of music. But, they would be like, who's Aerosmith? Like, is that a band? Are they still alive? Like, or who's Hall and Oates? Like they've never heard of them, like one of the 5 top selling pop artists in history. Doesn't exist to them. So the culture moves very, very fast and sort of like is, I don't know about exponential, but is ever increasing right now. There's a lot of content.
I think there's 2 different ways to look at it, and I think both of them are valid. So we're both more splintered because we can listen, we don't need to listen to the radio anymore. You just put on Spotify and listen to what you already know. You go to your forums, you go to your Facebook groups.
Right.
But at the same time, it's so much easier to communicate with other people. Go to sites like Rate Your Music and find music from other genres. So it's both easier to stay secluded and only care about your niche, but also be interested in other niches. So I don't think it would have been that easy for me to, for example, find post-punk as it would have been if I didn't have Spotify and the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know about Spotify exactly. Like before Spotify, but once the internet was a thing, like for instance, there was like God, what was it called? emusic.com. Was it like one of the first, you know, legally downloadable subscription services for MP3s? And I found tons of stuff on there. Like Ken Mode, I remember, is one of the bands that like I discovered through this. You know, you just binge download stuff and put it on your iPod and listen to it. And the stuff that was great, you would keep or buy a CD or, you know, buy a shirt or whatever, email them on the internet and say, I like your band, find their MySpace page. Um, so you didn't need Spotify, but there was definitely some degree of like chasing through, sort of like the equivalent of digging through CD racks and looking at covers or looking at bios or whatever. Um, but all of that's always felt better than radio to me, unless you're talking about, you know, college radio or something that's very uh, like sort of organic and not top down. You know, radio in the United States at least has always been, it's always been like what big companies are trying to sell at that moment.
Yeah, so I'm someone who actually really enjoys pop music and a lot of the popular music that goes around. But I'm completely detached from what's on the radio mostly. So then I look at what's actually popular, and I still don't recognize the pop artists that I follow. And I look at something like the new Carly Rae Jepsen or the new Jessie Ware, and they're not in the tops anymore.
No, no, definitely. I don't, to me, it seems like, and I don't know, it's just my perspective, but it seems like radio is basically dead. Like around us, you know, there's like, we play the best of the 80s and the 90s. You know, it's like radio for people who grew up listening to radio and they just want to hear that stuff over and over again. And the same
Yeah.
thing, like there's, you know, there's a hip hop station, but they're like throwbacks. You know, uh it's all old school stuff. So I
And
guess it doesn't
it's not
surprise
bad
me
that
that
it's
like a
old school.
modern new, you're not going to hear like Housley or Robin or Charlie XCX or whatever on the radio because, you know, those people
I
have
wish
given
I
up
would
on
hear
radio.
Charlie XCX on the radio.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. Maybe on satellite radio. I guess that's more of like that's a thing that I guess some people listen to.
Yeah, and I wouldn't know. Like all of my listening is done here.
Yeah, same. I do have a couple dozen CDs in my car, and every once in a while I will pull out an old CD and put it in, and it's awesome. Like you don't have to look at your phone. You get in your car, the music just starts playing. You get out of your car and walk away. You come back, it starts playing where it left off. It sounds great. There's no like, it's awesome. Like I feel like CDs are unfairly maligned. Like it's a totally fine format. One of the things that um, I think as a recording engineer, people don't discuss about CDs is that CDs are probably the closest way that, like in a mass distribution way, or in a physical format way, they're definitely the closest way for you to hear what we were hearing in the studio.
Yeah, there's a lot of error correction that goes. I mean, I did have a course in college about how CD technology works. I think I remember some of it.
There is a lot of error correction, but in the end, you know, they can use CD-ROMs to get data out accurately. Like it's not like there's, oh, my files have errors in them, you know, like the error correction works. And it's just a vinyl, you know, there's a lot of physical variables that go into how vinyl playback sounds. And with CDs, there are variables.
You know what you're gonna get.
It's pretty accurate to what we were hearing in the studio. So yeah, I still have my 30-year-old CD of Corrosion of Conformity Blind, which is a fantastic record. And I just had that in my car for 2 days and it was awesome. It was like, this is awesome. Like I just, you know.
Yeah, on one hand, vinyl are like a little personalized experience because the little cracks, they're personal to each vinyl. And also the artwork is a lot bigger.
The artwork is a lot bigger and the way that your your stylus or your cartridge is going to sound, or your phono preamp. Like all those things make a big difference.
But you cannot play them in your car.
It's hard to play them in your car. Yeah.
And they're expensive.
And they're big. Yeah.
And
there's a lot of petroleum in them. You know, I mean, there's a lot of petroleum in CDs also.
Yeah, but it's not like streaming is also completely green.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. I mean, I that's complicated because at least it's not leaving a bunch of plastic in the earth, I guess, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's at least a bit more contained.
Yeah, but certainly using lots of power.
I think the greenest way to listen to music is to just listen to it once and then replay it in your head.
Well, the greenest way to listen to music is probably to sit down with an acoustic instrument and play it, or watch it be played.
Well, it depends on the music. That might be air pollution. I mean, not air pollution, noise pollution.
Oh, I mean, I'm talking about acoustic instruments, you know, so, and we're talking about green, not.
Okay. So
I stand by my point.
I understand your point. I think this was supposed to be an interview about your band, but we've done a very, very long detour.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You have a new record out.
Yes.
You might have noticed that it took a long time to get it out. Why?
There were a number of reasons. The first one is that we had some personnel changes. Our drummer, Jeff, left the band right after Grievances came out. Our friend Julia played drums with us for a year, and then she moved away. So after a little hunting around, we managed to talk our friend Dan Snedden, who played in Early Graves for years, into joining. And Dan has been awesome. He's just like the perfect fit. And he was unsure that he could do this. He's like, man, I don't think I can play this slow. But he's such a good drummer. And I love having him in the band. It's so great. So we had to work that out. And every writing experience is, you know, hard and slow for our band. But this one was worse, mostly because of me. I just had a brutal writer's block episode where I was like, man, I have nothing to say. I can't imagine anyone wanting to hear anything I have to say anyway. And why are we doing any of this? And I just kind of went through that for a long time until, and, you know, and there's some other reasons, but basically like I held everyone up for years. A lot of stuff in this band falls back on me. Not everything, but a lot of things.
Well, don't do that again.
Yeah, I mean, that's my plan. I'm trying to learn something from this experience. Like, it sucked. I don't want to do it. I don't think any of us would want to do it again. But it was just, it's been a weird few years. I don't know.
Yeah, well, at least now the album's out.
It is.
Now, some time did pass since it was released. How do you feel about it now?
This is something that you don't often hear from me, but I feel good about it. I think we made a good record, and I'm proud of it and proud of everyone's contributions. And I don't think I would change anything about it, really. Maybe, not much. So that's, I mean, for me, that's like a rave review. That's like, yay, you know. Yeah, I feel good.
So
we did exactly what we. Sorry, go ahead.
Finally, some good self-criticism. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly. The trick is to just wait years and years and years between records, and then you'll be so relieved that you're happy with what you did. Yeah, I think we set out to do a number of things differently on this record, and I think we succeeded at a bunch of them. And that worked out, and it's good.
Yeah, it did sound like a bit of a different record. It seemed more streamlined and more distilled to exactly the bare essential that needs to be transmitted.
Yeah, those were, I mean, exactly the things that we were shooting for. So if that came across, that's great.
Yeah, I think it worked very well, especially because the album is quite short at 32 minutes. If it was a 50 minutes long record with exactly the same as ingredients, it would have been a bit more tiresome. and but it is a bit of a monotonous album in a way.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fine with that. Like I won't say that it's intentional, but it's not accidental either. I'm like, our band we're good at sort of one specific thing, and that's fine. Like and I also like short albums. I think, you know, a 32, 35-minute record is like the sweet spot, you know. Slayer, Rain and Blood is like 29 minutes, perfect. I don't need 50-minute albums from almost anyone, once in a while, but I'm totally fine. I think all of our records have been, you know, 32 or 34 minutes or something like that. That's fine. If you like it, just listen to it again, you know.
And I also think there's a case to be made about really, really long albums.
What case is that?
I do like some. There are some black metal or some jazz albums like Beaches Brew from Miles Davis that are really long, but so they feel like really grandiose experiences because they're so long.
Yeah, there's that shit, what's his name? Kamasi Washington put out this record called The Epic.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's like 19 hours long or whatever, and you can just, it's just like, yeah. And I've been listening to this Sev Deliza record. Do you know her?
Yeah.
It's like weird minimal pop music, and that record I think feels pretty long. Let's look. It is an hour and 2 minutes, 15 songs. That's pretty long. None of the songs are very long. They're all, you know, 3-4 minutes, but yeah, there's 15 of them, and it's great. Like when it finishes, I'll just put it on again. Like, so it works out sometimes, but for me and for, you know, like heavy records, I don't know. I generally don't need a 55-minute record, and I'm totally content for our band to do, you know, 32, 34-minute records forever. That's fine by me.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. So as someone who doesn't necessarily just listen to music for pleasure, but has to listen to music because you have to keep up with it. Sometimes some band comes up with a record, and I'm opening the album on Spotify hoping that it's 40 minutes long. It's not longer than that.
Yeah.
And then it's 70 minutes. Oh god.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it and pull it off, good. But I am just a merciless, insufferable editor, and you know, to come up with 50 minutes of or 60 minutes of stuff that you have absolutely like just torn apart and made sure that everything, you know, you're happy with every single thing that's on there. It's a lot.
A lot more bands need editors.
Yeah. It's funny. I have look, our test pressings here that I got 2 days ago, and I just listened to them, and I hadn't heard this album in a while, and even I was like, oh, it's over already. Like, huh, you know, it was an interesting experience, and I think that's great. Like, much better than like, oh my god, it's still going.
So that's a new Walled City record?
That is Piecework. The vinyl.
Okay.
You know, vinyl delays are just the way of life at this point, and we were hoping to have the vinyl for this in November or December, like shortly after the release date, but the pressing plant is in New Orleans, and they had this huge hurricane over the summer, and it just like shut down the city for weeks and weeks and weeks, and, you know, has had long lasting effects. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, the records will get done when they get done, and that's just the way it is now. So there's a test pressing, and hopefully that means records, you know, reasonably soon, but we're being very patient because we feel like, you know, we have to be.
Yeah, no real way around it.
Nope. And, you know, living through your city going through like a natural disaster is much, much more important than someone's record coming out.
Yeah, naturally. You also had a record, a split record coming out last year.
Oh yeah,
That was a tribute. Your song was actually recorded in 2011, I think, something like that.
yeah, yes. In our practice phase, a long time ago.
Mm. Okay, how was the entire experience?
So it was amazing. The the I'll try and make the story short, but uh, that band Shallow North Dakota are just super important to me. Like they changed the way I think about heavy music. Their first two records in the 90s I listened to a ton, and they were just very satisfying and like fun, and they were like a gnarlier Helmet, like tight and like these sort of short, real, angular riffs, but very like blown out and heavy. But then their third record, Mob Wheel, that they put out in, I don't know, 2001 or two, is like, it just sounds like everything's exploding. It's so burly and fucked up and heavy. And that record, like, just, it was like getting run over by a truck. It really, really important to me, and really important to our band. Like when we started our band, one of the three bands that I said to everyone that I was hoping to, sort of like weave influences into this band was Shallow North Dakota. So yeah, earlier this year we found out that Tony, their drummer and singer, had stage 4 pancreatic, I think, cancer. And like right away we said like, oh, what is there anything that we can do here, and I talked to a couple people from the band that weren't Tony and said, hey, we're thinking, we was like, wait, we have this song that we recorded 10 years ago that we never used. We did a cover. I hit up Biff from the band and said, we might release this as a 7-inch, to raise money for Tony. Would you be okay with that? And he said, oh, absolutely. And I said, you don't by chance have anything left over that you haven't released, do you? And he said, yeah, in fact, we have a song that couldn't fit on the Mob Wheel that we've just been sitting on forever. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how did I not know this existed? So he talked to the band. They were totally down to release it. Somehow Jesse from Ken Mode, I don't remember if I was just talking to him or I don't know, but he got wind of this and said, could we do something? We could record it this weekend. He loves Shallow North Dakota. He and I have a shared love of that band. I remember he was on tour years ago, and I think he actually had copies of one of their records that he was like selling or giving out or something. He got a box of their records. He's a huge fan. So we said, sure. And then Sean from Great Sabatini, we hit him up about doing art, hit up Carl Sapp about mastering. And Sean turned around all these incredible illustrations in like 2 days that are all inspired by Shallow North Dakota songs. And basically like 2 weeks later, after hearing this really heartbreaking news, we had like a fundraising record ready to go and be ordered. It was incredible. And just the like, feeling that people coming together and being stoked and being really selfless. It was great. It's just a really great experience. And I love having this extra Shallow North Dakota song from my favorite record of theirs that I didn't know existed. And I love that we got a chance to turn a lot of people onto this band, who I think is just fantastic and everyone should listen to. And we also raised a ton of money for their family. So that's really great.
You did get me into the band.
Say again? Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. They're so good.
Yeah.
Sadly, it looked for a while like Tony stood a chance against that cancer. His wife was keeping us all updated, and he had like a lot of upswings and a lot of things where the doctors were like, this is impossible. Like he's doing so well. But he died last month. So he was, yeah, I was very sorry to hear it too. He was 45. He had 2 young kids. Like I don't know, 5, 7, 8, something like that, young. Uh, and the only solace I can take in it, I guess, is that he did have. It wasn't like he got in a car crash, or something like that. He had many months to really like surround himself by family and people that he loved, and I hope for everyone involved that was, um, therapeutic.
Yeah, it's at least you have the chance to say goodbye.
Yeah, yeah. There's another tribute album that is coming out. I think they just announced it today, but it'll be released in January. It's got 30 bands doing Shallow North Dakota covers. I think they have every single song by Shallow North Dakota covered on there. It's bands like Tunic and Throat and I don't know, just all these sort of gnarly noise rock bands. I've heard a couple songs from it. I mixed one for this band Cell Press, and it was rad. They're, to me, they're sort of like Black Sabbath. It's like, all right, I'll just listen to anyone play these songs. Like, they just rip.
Yeah, and since you were talking about noise rock just now, since we're a metal website, noise rock is music that's very, very heavy, but it's not necessarily under the metal umbrella. But if you move a bit to the left, you can call it sludge metal, and now it's metal.
Is it? I guess it is. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen Kowloon Walled City called both sludge metal and noise rock by different people, but it's almost the same sound.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to me, when I think of metal these days, I think of like, metal, like, and I
mean, can you listen to it? Can you imagine the man singing wearing a leather jacket, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that, like, it's, metal also encompasses, like death metal and grind and all this other like much more extreme stuff than just like sort of heavy metal. But I think, to me, I don't know. I feel like the line ends up being a little bit like, I don't even know if I can say that. Like it seems like you get a little bit out of like, we're playing metal when there's, man, I don't think I can actually put this into good words. I'm having trouble with. In the end, I guess it's just all like this big spectrum, like it's all super loud, gnarly music, and it all borrows from each other at this point. And to me, most bands that are like, we are a genre, like we are a symphonic doom band, like that's probably not going to be for me. Like if you feel like you've got to follow rules, or like it's more like in the finding interesting things and mixing them up that makes it interesting. So, is that like, I don't know, what is sludge metal, or is noise rock sludge, or I don't know. I don't care. Like, it's like I was saying earlier about music. Like, if a band is great, like, awesome. Like one of the examples that I've cited a bunch of times about this is Big Brave. Like, what is Big Brave?
They're Big Brave.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're awesome, and they sound like them. And yeah, they could play shows with probably any band that's on your site, but they'll always be their own thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really heavy music, especially all the way down to the 80s. You have also had Swans. You had the entire hardcore scene. and a lot of it is not really, I would say, known to metalheads, but it's clear that most metalheads, when they listen to music from the 70s or the 80s, they either listen to Iron Maiden and Judas Priest from that period, or Depeche Mode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I came up definitely a metalhead, but I also, like, when I heard Swans, or when I heard Frontline Assembly or Nitzareb, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of other, like,
Cabaret Voltaire.
sort of,
Cabaret Voltaire.
yeah. I was not a huge Cat Voltaire fan, but like other stuff that's sort of like in that world anyway. Like, I was always like down with that stuff when it was good. So, I don't know. Like, there are definitely people who are like, I listen to metal. Like I like stuff with like fan fret guitars and Kemper amp modelers and drum triggers, and like it's super clean, and like that's a whole world. But I also think there's lots of people who like lots of gritty, real, interesting stuff across a whole spectrum. I don't know that you can generalize metalheads at this point. Like, maybe you can. I don't know, because you spend a lot of time in that
I spend a
world.
lot of time with metalheads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because our website doesn't only have metal music precisely, so there are a lot of band profiles that are not for metal bands, and I can see about the amount of activity they generate, how many comments they get, how many ratings they have, stuff like that. So you can see, for example, we do have Godspeed You Black Emperor. I just wrote an article about Mogwai the other day. I mean, not the other day, a month ago. So those do generate a bit of activity. You can see that they're still popular, but they're not as popular as ISIS, for example, which is almost
Interesting.
the same thing, but it's metal.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, heavy music is super supportive and loves music. I think, like that, the like, sort of heavy music world. I think that's the reason that a band like ours can exist for this long and sell records, is just because of this very supportive, like, nurturing scene. And I've seen and recorded lots of bands that are in other worlds, and I think they have it much tougher. If you're doing power pop, or you're doing like sort of mathy indie rock or something like that, like there's a fan base out there for it, but they're not
as
insular,
not as insular as a tightly knit community the way that metalheads are.
It's not about being tightly knit. I think it's more like about just being stoked, like about wanting to share and discover, and just have this, like, it's always been like this, like you watch that Iron Maiden Flight 666 documentary or whatever, and it's like these guys have never had a song on a chart in their life, but like here are like 100,000 insane Brazilians, like, going to see 7 shows in a row or whatever, like that kind of, like, that spirit. I think it doesn't exist in every genre of music, even, or in every sort of like broad world of music, but heavy music 100%, definitely.
But that might also be the bias that we have as people who constantly engage with this.
Yeah, but like I said, I mean, I see a lot of other bands, I think, because of the recording stuff, and I can see, it is, I don't know, metal's also in some ways very conservative, right? Like, to some degree, yes, there are bands doing very new things, but there's not like I don't know if there's like a Seb DeLisa or a Phoebe Bridgers or a, like, or like a, I don't know, trying to pick some like modern rap stuff, or what, you pick like whatever, like sort of really cutting edge rap stuff there is right now. Like,
I don't know, Arca just released 4 albums.
I feel like, you know, metal people, they want more loud music, like they're stoked on it, you know, and it's sort of an easy sell, like, which I think is the influencer thing you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, every Friday I get a new death metal album, and I'm happy. Just pump it in my veins already.
Amazing.
Okay, so I think this interview is already running quite long. We're almost at the hour pay, and I'm not really sure how many people will want to watch the entire thing. So we're gonna have to cut it quite short soon. So since we're talking on the topic of heavy music that is not metal, what would you say would be 3 records from the 80s or the 90s of heavy music that is not metal that metalheads should listen to?
Oh wow. Let's see. Man, it's a good question, but it requires a little bit of thought. Off the top of my head, I would say, I don't know about not metal. It's funny, but like Ministry. In case you didn't feel like showing up, the live Ministry record is awesome. Still awesome. What else is sort of like heavy but not metal?
Slint?
No, I don't know if that's heavy enough.
Fugazi? Something like that.
Who?
Fugazi? I don't know how to
Fugazi.
pronounce it.
Fugazi is a good choice. If this is not, when did this come out? Hang on, I gotta check my work here. I was gonna say Frodis, and we washed our weapons in the sea. Really great record. It came out 2001. That's too new. Like that Ministry stuff that's older. You could say the first Nine Inch Nails record, Pretty Hate Machine. You could pick an old Swans record, like what's the one with the carrot on the cover? Is that Love of Life?
Well, I think that's White Light from Moth of Infinity.
Oh, that, yes. Also, Neubauten, Tabula Rosa, great Neubauten record. Like songs, you know, it is all like banging on shit and everything, but it is songs too. It's like sort of industrial sounding and really cool songs. And definitely has some moments that are like, fuck, this is heavy. That's a good one. Any old PJ Harvey, any and all PJ Harvey, but the older stuff is maybe like a little more
Rowdy.
A little more like Strangle You kind of. And I'll also throw in, I think this is late 90s also, but the record that PJ Harvey did, the collab with shit, come on. It's called Dance Hall at Louse Point. What's his name? This is not cool. Sorry, I'm glad I can look this stuff up. Oh yeah, John Parrish. That's a great record. It definitely has some pretty burly moments, but is, you know, it's not remotely heavy at all. Really beautiful. If I get my brain going on this, I can come up with more, but it just takes a minute. But that's a pretty good list. That Neubauten one's a really good choice, I think.
Ein Sturzende Neubauten. Okay, so
really
I think that's a pretty good list, even though Ministry and Nine Inch Nails are already on our website.
Well, if you need something else, I'll have to think about it a little bit. I I feel like I should be able to drop like 10 things like this, but I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. So
I think this is more of an email question than a live interview.
yeah, like if you're the kind of person who can just drop this on the spot, I salute you. But for me, it's like I got to go like look through my records, or I got to think about it a little bit.
Well, you can email me.
I will.
Okay. So then, I think this wraps things up. Do you have anything to add to our readers?
Do I have anything to add? Let's see. Hang on, I'll come up with something. I should think of this answer. Everyone always asks this, and I don't necessarily have.
Well, other than please listen to our new record. I already heard it.
No, I don't. Whatever. You don't need to listen to our new record. I'm working on it. I guess I'll just say go listen to that Seb DeLisa record. Like I cannot get enough of it. That's my closing statement. Is like just put that thing on 3 times through. Watch a couple of her insane videos. Like watch her. She did a Tiny Desk concert. It's incredible. Just so musical and minimal and beautiful and well played. That's my closing statement. Seb DeLisa.
I think there was a period about a week where I would watch that Darkest Hour video daily.
Shit is incredible.
It's incredible indeed. So thank you very much for taking the time for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So hear you soon. We'll listen to Seb DeLisa. Take care.
Cheers.